Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu. Welcome once again to Kahului Hongwanji Buddhist Temple's online Sunday YouTube service. Today's family service is for March 13th, 2022. So today's service, just a regular service, so we have begun already with the Kansho, the ringing of the bell, temple bell, which calls us to attention, to mindfulness, awareness as we listen to the Dharma and reflect on ourselves. And following these opening words, we will chant the Vandana Tisarana, praising the Buddha's enlightenment, the Buddha's wisdom, and taking refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Following that, we will chant the Sutra, the English version of Jusege, which is called Verses Reaffirming the Vows. So this is a hymn or a gatha from the larger Pure Land Sutra, in which the Bodhisattva reaffirms his Bodhisattva vows to save all beings, and that he will not become a Buddha, will not accept full attainment unless everyone is included, everyone is saved or enlightened along with him. Following the sutra, and that's the English version is called Verses Reaffirming the Vow. Following that, we will recite the Golden Chain of Love, and then I will share a Dharma message with you. After the Dharma message, we will chant the Metta, the loving kindness meditation, and then sing the Nembutsu. And then I will have some closing words and announcements. So thank you very much for joining us, and let's begin our service by putting our hands together in Gassho and reciting the Nembutsu. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu.
Aid in times of suffering, May I not attain Buddhahood. I will reach enlightenment, but unless my Buddha name resounds throughout the universe, may I not attain Buddhahood. I will practice the noble path, wisely, mindfully, free of greed, seek to reach the supreme way, be a guide to one and all. May my power shine great light to illumine and dispel the darkness of the three poisons, and save all from suffering. With eyes of wisdom I'll remove the darkness of ignorance. I will close all evil paths, open gates of highest good. When I attain Buddhahood, light will shine throughout all lands, light brighter than sun and moon, outshining all heavenly lights, giving my virtues to all, not forsaking anyone. I will proclaim the Dharma like the roar of a great lion, bowing before all Buddhas, steadfastly gaining virtues, with wisdom fulfilling my vows. I shall be a guide to all, like the wisdom of my teacher. May my wisdom also shine all throughout the universe, and illumine one and all. If I shall fulfill these vows, may all lands tremble with joy. From the heavens wondrous flowers rain down upon all the lands. Namon Dabu, Namon Dabu, Namon Dabu, Namon Dabu, Namon Dabu, Namon Dabu. The virtue of Amida's vow is shared equally by all, together attaining awakened mind. We are born in the land of peace. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu.
Golden Chain of Love. I am a link in Amida Buddha's golden chain of love that stretches around the world. I must keep my link bright and strong. I will try to be kind and gentle to every living thing and protect all who are weaker than myself. I will try to think pure and beautiful thoughts, to say pure and beautiful words, and to do pure and beautiful deeds, knowing that on what I do now depends not only my happiness or unhappiness, but also that of others. May every link in Amida Buddha's golden chain of love become bright and strong, and may we all attain perfect peace. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu. Welcome once again, and at this time I'd like to share some thoughts about the Buddha's teaching with you. Today, well, first of all, let's begin with to recite the Nembutsu, Namo Amida Butsu. Please join me. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu. So this morning, or today, depending on when you watch this video, I would like to talk about something that many people have asked me about over the years, and which seems to be definitely a source of anxiety. That is the teaching in Jodo Shinshu, or Shin Buddhism, of the evil or defiled person, also called the Bombu, the foolish person, which literally means a person of blind passions, or more simply, a person of attachments. Actually, this is a fundamental Buddhist belief. It's not just Jodo Shinshu. It means that we are governed by our attachments, our desires, the way we place our hopes on the future, and we're kind of chained to our feelings about the past. So really, the way we look outside of ourselves for our peace of mind, or for our satisfaction and fulfillment in life, and Buddhism is meant to be the cure for the suffering that this brings to us, this need that we always feel that something else out there will complete my life. But I think the subject deserves some discussion, because the way it's expressed in Jodo Shinshu, in Shin Buddhism, creates a kind of an idea, I think, which is difficult for people to understand, and confusing, and in a way disturbing. So, many times I've had people tell me that, I've had lots of problems in my life. I've gone through many things, and now I'm trying to feel good about myself. They'll say, I'm trying to feel good about myself. But every time I listen to a Dharma message, or whenever there's a lecture about Shin Buddhism and so on, I keep hearing about how, I'm an evil person. We have to realize that we are an evil person. And actually, the word evil is kind of a bad choice of words, but it's really a person full of blind passions, attachments. But anyway, I can relate to this response, because I did not grow up in Buddhism myself, and I didn't grow up in the kind of Asian culture, but in the Christian tradition. And when I first heard about the evil person, I also felt a little bit confused. Many people grew up in religious environments in the West, mainly Christian, where the idea is that you have to be good. That's what was emphasized, and you wouldn't, and you mustn't be bad. You mustn't be evil or sinful, and so on. And so, I think we have developed that kind of defense, cultural defense, where we don't want to admit that there's anything evil or bad within us, anything, we don't want to admit to our imperfections and faults, because there's a lot at stake there. People get very, worried and fearful that, if people find out that I'm not a good person, they won't like me, and judge me, and so on. And that's a legitimate concern that people have. So, this idea in Buddhism that you need to awaken to the realization, I am an evil person, I am a person full of blind passions, it can be very disturbing. Throw off your sense of equilibrium, sense of inner value. Actually, many of us who did not grow up in the Buddhist environment have the problem that in the first place we don't feel good anyway. We don't feel like good people. We already feel bad about ourselves. You might think that when someone with such a background hears Shinran's words, that Amida's vow arose in order to save the person of deep and grave karmic evil, that person might say, oh great, that vow is great, is for me, I'm happy about that. But the trouble is that the issue is not really clear. It's confusing to people. Many modern people, Americans and Europeans, and actually a growing number of Asians, because now the modern Western sort of fragmented industrial capitalist consumerist world is taken over everywhere. And so people have a really negative sense of self-worth. In other words, we don't feel good about ourselves to begin with. We don't feel we have value. We always feel we have to earn value for ourselves. And part of that, excuse me, part of that is brought about by this fragmentation in society. And so on, you know, and I grew up with a lot of sense of guilt. It was cultural on my part, that sense of guilt, and not very much sense of worth as a person. And however, a person like me doesn't want to feel like a bad person. I'm sure that's true of you too. Naturally, I like to feel good about myself, but the teaching of the defiled or the evil person, the person of blind passions or attachments, actually, in Buddhism, is not meant to make us feel worse about ourselves. On the contrary, it's meant to free us from the slavery of false attachment to ourselves, to free me from an ego-centered life. But there is a cultural gap that needs to be addressed, I think, because Buddhism has been imported to the West in Japanese or other Asian forms, and those forms influence how we receive it. These forms have never really been adjusted to fit the psychological makeup of Western people. That's why even most local Japanese people here in Hawaii follow Buddhism mainly in a cultural way and for the sake of honoring family. The content of Buddhism is pretty much ignored because Buddhism itself continues to be presented in an ancient Asian context, cultural and language context, which is very confusing to anyone who has grown up in Western culture. When I was growing up, I was raised a Roman Catholic, and there are many great things about that tradition, by the way. It has a profound intellectual, artistic, and cultural heritage, and its philosophical and theological traditions are very profound and have made tremendous contributions to many of the most important values that we hold dear in the Western world, values that are vital and important, such as the preciousness of each individual life. And that is true of all Christian traditions, I think, at least all the authentic ones. And I think all the great religious traditions beyond Christianity, everything, all traditions are paths to ultimate truth. But at the same time, each religious tradition is expressed and lived by human beings. And human beings are capable of delusion and error. There's our blind passions working right there. And one of these errors, a big one I think, is the fact that religion itself is often used by institutions and individuals and governments as a means to control people. So it is, for example, that the emphasis on patience and humility, which is so much a part of Buddhism and Christianity, for that matter, was used by Buddhist societies all over Asia to encourage people to passively accept terrible inequalities and injustices in their societies. This is happening to you. People were told by the culture, because of your karma, the conditions that you created. So just be patient, be humble, and accept it. You'll get, rewarded in the next life, or if you don't, you'll be punished. And that kind of thing is still very common today in Asian countries, and in other ways, in the Christian context, in the Western context, it also is still something which is operative. And in Western culture, Christians are often told that their sinful nature as human beings justifies any and all inequality, abuse, and mistreatment at the hands of others, particularly the wealthy and the powerful. So I got a glimpse of this kind of thinking growing up in the Catholic Church. I remember being told, even if I didn't think I deserved the something or other that had just happened to me at school or on the playground or whatever, I had probably done something else that was bad and which I hadn't yet been punished for. And even if I was being unfairly treated, very unfairly treated, you know, say maybe some teacher was real unfair with me or something in school or something, I got punished for something that I absolutely didn't do, you know, so I was being treated unjustly for no reason, then I was told that I had no doubt done something wrong somewhere along the line. God sees everything, I was told, and sooner or later He's going to punish you for everything you do. So that is not the essence of true Christianity any more than that what I said before is the essence of Buddhism. But it is what happens to religion culturally, and it's important to realize that. I don't know exactly what experiences, you know, lifelong Buddhists might have had along these lines growing up. It wouldn't surprise me to learn if parents or ministers, you know, in Jodo Shinshu or any other Buddhist tradition, had tried to scare children over the years or centuries into good behavior with stories of gruesome karmic retribution if they didn't do what they were supposed to be doing. Unfortunately, religions almost always become a part of the local culture, and they get used as a means of control through the threat of punishment in this world or the next world. But for those who are really seeking truth and meaning in their lives, the cultural context of religion can really be a hindrance. In one of Tai Uno's books, he mentions an account of how back in the 1950s and 60s, when Buddhism, especially Zen Buddhism, of course, was becoming popular among American young people, quite a few people went to Japan to study the Zen, to study with Zen monks, you know, to become Zen monks. And these were very serious people, and they really had a desire to learn and to practice the Dharma, but they didn't have the same cultural context, experiences, and values that the average Japanese, you know, people of the same age had, young people had at that time anyway. I think the gap is narrowed now, but this is back in the 50s and 60s. Many of these Americans who went to Japan were flexible enough, and they adapted and picked up enough of Japanese culture and language to be able to cope and even to make real progress in Buddhist practice. But quite a few of these young Americans couldn't cope, and they had nervous breakdowns and other mental problems. What happened to them was that, unlike the average Japanese young person at the time, practicing under those strict Zen masters, the Americans had little or no sense of self-worth. They came there with little or no sense of self-worth. The system of training in Japanese Zen temples is really designed to break down a student's ego, to break down this ego that you think you're the center of the world and everything, and to put the person, him or her, into a place where they could encounter the limits of their own power and ability, to break that arrogance, you know. In other words, young individuals with a strong sense of self-worth are given the opportunity to encounter impermanence and the transience of the self. Buddhism is all about breaking down the false idea of the self and replacing it with the experience of reality. But the average Japanese young person at that time still had a good deal of confidence in themselves. You know, they were brought up by devoted parents who really instilled in them a sense of their own value and worth. And I think that's still quite operative in a lot of East Asian families, you know, especially for the boys. but I think that gap is narrowing too. But they also knew, these young Japanese Zen monks also knew what to expect in the Zen training. They were prepared for it. They had grown up with the rituals of humility, bowing, and the social hierarchy. And that was all very comfortable stuff to them. But for the Americans who came there back then, it was different. They had much less sense of inherent sense of self-worth. Sometimes the opposite. That, you know, they thought that they were worthless. But they also had, at the same time, they had the American or Western sense of being individuals, that strong sense, I'm an individual. and not the group kind of sense. And bowing, also like bowing, you know, these kind of rituals, it's not an American custom, of course, nor is accepting being scolded by others. Our American instinct is not to apologize when someone scolds you, right? Our American instinct is to defend myself. You know, you know, don't criticize me. I didn't do it, or that's not fair. You know, that's a more Western way, and there's a lot to be said for bowing, by the way, but that's another issue. I think it's really a universal human instinct, but it hasn't been fully expressed in other cultures. That sense of, you know, kind of bowing is sort of flexibility, deferring to others, not having to make everything a conflict, a fight. But it's not, and certainly not then. It wasn't inherent American behavior. Anyway, many of these young American Buddhist aspirants who went to Japan in those days were shattered by the experience they had in the Zen temples in Japan. They didn't have any strong self-identity to be broken down. They just got totally crushed by the experience. Actually, they really needed to have their sense of self-worth built up. You know, you have to build, the sense of your value, your worth as a person needs to be built up, and then your ego can be broken down. But if, you know, today this is better understood, I think, and when Americans go to Japan for Buddhist training nowadays, if they do that, they are treated with much overt kindness. That was true in my experience when I went. Of course, Hongwanji is not Zen, it's different, but we had Tokudo and Kyoshi training, which was part of becoming a minister. And all of us Americans were treated with kid gloves, you know, but very gently, you know. But the Japanese students were constantly being yelled at and scolded. You know, we were all together, but the Japanese were held up to this high standard, but the Americans were treated, you know, very kindly, very, very softly. But because they knew that we might not be able to take that kind of harsh scolding and so on. So with the idea of the evil person, the foolish person, we have to understand that no one can arrive at true humility, essential to the spiritual path, unless they first understand the infinite value and worth of their own life. This is very important. So though you usually hear this idea of realizing you're an evil person presented as a doctrine of Shin Buddhism, it's much better to understand it as a very subtle teaching. Shinran emphasized blind passions not to make us feel bad, but to allow us to see ourselves more honestly, so that we can realize our true worth. To realize that I, a person filled with selfishness, am embraced by boundless love and compassion. That awakens my true self, which, as Shinran tells us, is the Buddha, is Buddha nature itself, enlightenment itself. So there's another story that Tai Uno told about Mother Teresa, the Catholic nun who worked for many years serving the destitute people in the streets of Calcutta. So she lived in poverty without any luxuries at all. And in response to the question from a journalist, I guess, why do you make all these sacrifices for other people? She didn't say that she was trying to do good or anything like that. She said that she lived this kind of life because she realized that there was a Hitler inside of her, a Hitler inside of her. So what does she mean? It's sobering and disturbing for us to realize that Hitler and his followers all believed that they were doing good. They thought that they were doing good for the world. That's true of anyone who believes they have a right to use power and terror to make the world the way they think it should be. They really believe they know what is good. In addition, such people believe that in fulfilling their agenda of destruction, murder, and brutality, they are actually sacrificing themselves for the good of others. We're doing this for others, you know. Mother Teresa understood this very well, and so she didn't claim to be good, or even to have the intention of doing good. Instead, she put herself on the same level as the people who needed help. She became one with them, In that state of mind, we do know what truly needs to be done. You can discern what is real in yourself and in others when you when you put yourself on the level of oneness with them. There's a similar story in the Tanisho. When Shinran asked his student Yuyan Bo if he would do anything at all for him, Yuyan Bo said, "Yes, of course, I do anything for you." Shinran challenged him by ordering him, "Go out and kill 1,000 people." Of course, Shinran knew that his student could not and would not do such a thing, but he wanted to teach Yuyan Bo by making him aware of his incorrect assumption of his own goodness. I am a true follower of my master Shinran. This is how Yuyan Bo saw himself. And to be asked to do something totally against Buddhist teachings, go out and kill 1,000 people, must have thrown him into confusion. But he didn't question his teacher's command. Rather, he apologized. "It's not in my power to kill even one person." And Shinran's answer is very important. He said to him, "We need to realize that if conditions were right, any of us might kill 1,000 people, one person or 1,000 people. If the conditions were such that we felt it was called for or necessary or out of fear, for instance, if you're a soldier in the front lines and you've been trained that people are shooting at you and you shoot back at them, and so on. A person who wishes, and even a person who wishes to do nothing but good in the world, may easily end up killing or harming others. While, if due to conditions, one who really wishes to do harm to others might end up doing good. You know, it really depends on the conditions. So when we have a sense of ourselves as being good, assuming that we will be able to do good and act compassionately as we wish for the sake of others, simply because we desire to do so, this creates a false kind of self-acceptance, a false sense of self-worth. It's flattering ourselves, building up our ego. If I think I am good, I might feel a little better about myself. But there is a great difference between seeing myself as good and true self-acceptance. A person who truly knows that there is a Hitler inside, who will choose to become one with the victims, the suffering beings of all Hitlers, because only from this condition of oneness can we find true compassion. This is why Shinran insists over and over that the working of Amida's primal vow, the wish of boundless life, the oneness of life, the wish of all of life, has nothing whatsoever to do with your or my goodness or evil. True good does not come from our calculating minds, but from the mind of great compassion. The concept of the evil person is very difficult, and nobody likes to see themselves with complete honesty. That goes without saying. But true self-knowledge is freedom. It is liberation from the self-delusion of thinking what I want must always be good. To see myself as I am, even if I don't like what I see, that's true self-acceptance. To realize that I am accepted and given each precious moment of life, despite my lack of goodness, allows true goodness to naturally awaken in me. To realize that I am embraced by Amida, boundless life, just as I am, allows me to accept others just as they are. And that is the way true goodness is expressed in this world. So thank you very much for listening, and please join me in Kansho as we recite the Nembutsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. May all beings be happy and well. May no harm or difficulties come to them. May they live in peace and harmony. May I be happy and well. May no harm or difficulties come to me. May I live in peace and harmony. May my family be happy and well. May no harm or difficulties come to them. May they live in peace and harmony. May my teachers be happy and well. May no harm or difficulties come to them. May they live in peace and harmony. May my friends be happy and well. May no harm or difficulties come to them. May they live in peace and harmony. May strangers be happy and well. May no harm or difficulties come to them. May they live in peace and harmony. May my enemies be happy and well. May no harm or difficulties come to them. May they live in peace and harmony. May all beings be happy and well. May no harm or difficulties come to them. May they live in peace and harmony. Thank you so much for joining us today for our Kahului Hongwanji Buddhist Temple's online YouTube service. I hope that you enjoyed today's service and that it brought you something meaningful that will be helpful for you in your life. So I have a few announcements. Next week will be a YouTube Sunday service and no in-person Sunday service. Today we actually had an in-person service as well as the YouTube service. So next week, March 20th, only YouTube service. Following week, March 27th, we will have our Ohigan. This is the spring equinox service. A time when we reflect on the harmony of the universe and we reflect also on the bodhisattva practices of attaining perfect wisdom. And then we will also have our family gratitude remembrance on that day. The 27th will be a YouTube service as well as a in-person service in the temple. The following week, April 3rd, we will have Kahului Hongwanji will have its Buddha's birthday celebration in the temple, and this will be a YouTube service as well as in-person service. And on April 10th, there will be no YouTube service, no in-person service here in the temple. There will be a Zoom celebration for the Central Maui Hanamatsuri Association. So that will be done on Zoom, and links and so for that will become available. I will try to let you know either through these announcements and also it will be available on our temple website. That will be, so those are the announcements so far for all the activities that are going on. Thank you very much for joining us once again today, and let's close our service by putting our hands together and reciting the Nembutsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu.